So there was these three upper class Victorian era women sitting in a mansion down in the deep south in the middle of the 1800s. Two of them were quite wealthy and the third one wasn't. And they were discussing what happened to them over the summer while they were apart. And the first one said, "My father presented me with the best thoroughbred horse in the entire county for my birthday." And the second one went, "Oh." And the third one went, "How nice." And the second one said, "I've received a proposal of marriage from one of the wealthiest families in Mississippi. The young man is 21 years old and intends to go into politics. I believe they're very wealthy. And my father and I are deciding whether or not we'll take the proposal and the dowry." And she goes on. And the first one goes, "Oh." And the third one goes, "How nice." So they look over at the third one, the poorest, and they go, "What did you do this summer?" And she said, "I went to finishing school in Atlanta." And they said, "Oh, what happened there?" And she said, "Well, before I went there, I used to say, 'Go screw yourself.' But now I say, 'How nice.'" There's three types of musicians in this world. The first kind is the ones who play the game and become mega famous and usually quite rich, and if they manage to hold on to the money. But they do so, they accomplish all that by losing their souls. The second group are the ones who can't play the game because they're not good enough to play the game, so they don't get invited to the party. And then there's a third, more impressive group who could play the game but refuse to play it because they know they're going to lose their soul. The music industry is a very strange beast, and right from the 40s pretty well on, the industry was a closed circuit. It was a closed room. It was a private club that no one could get into without passing through its gatekeepers. And the gatekeepers were, at that time and into the 50s for sure, when especially after Elvis and the big hits from country music in the early 50s, the gatekeepers were the record labels. So we have to take this into consideration, right? The record labels totally controlled and or owned all the recording studios. So the only way you could get into a studio is to have a record contract. And the only way you were going to get a record contract is if you passed, extreme auditions with, A&R guys from a label. Sometimes they would go out, sometimes scouts would go out to find artists to record, or sometimes somebody would show up on the doorstep of a label with a demo tape or just their guitar and sing a song, and the next thing you know, they were signed, but it was a closed system. So that second group of musicians who were good enough to perform, perhaps, and do different things, but they weren't really good enough to be involved in that machinery, they were completely shut out. And the industry flourished because of that. It was only the top things that rose to the top of the pile. The cream literally floated up there, and that's all that was skimmed off. There was nothing happening below that. If records were made on, if somebody made a record on their own and paid for it and did it, they were shut out of the business because they couldn't get distributed. They couldn't get on the radio. They couldn't do anything. So there was tons of albums made, but they were all just referred to as vanity records. People who were just making records so they could say they made one. So there were people all down through the industry who got invited into the game, but then said, "No, I don't think I'm doing this." And they just basically told Nashville and other places, but particularly Nashville, to go screw itself. And Waylon Jennings was one of those people. Waylon Jennings, among other people, I could list a bunch of them: Dwight Yoakam, Buck Owens, Chris Christopherson, Johnny Cash. There was a bunch of these people, and Willie Nelson, same way. There was a bunch of these people that were just like, you know what? I'm not playing this game, and I'm good enough to get played on the radio, and I have millions of followers, and I've sold millions of records, and so whatever. I don't care what you do or what you say about me or what you think about me or how you judge what I'm doing. I am who I am, and I'm going to do what I do. And if you don't like it, tough tit. And Waylon was one of those people. Waylon, I've read his autobiography, but I also met the man and knew him, and you could tell right away this guy was no bullshit. Like, it was his way or the highway, but he was nice about it, but he still was not going to capitulate to anyone. He was Waylon Jennings. He had a, they say, I never saw it, but they say he had a nameplate on his desk that said Waylon Goddamn Jennings. And, there was just, these were the people that I modeled myself after. Not because I thought I was as good as they were or could ever achieve what they did, but I saw the value in owning myself and not being beholden to anyone for any success I had or compromising what I thought I should do as an artist, whether it be how I write, produce records, play on stage, dress, talk, whatever. I knew that if you played the game, if you were invited to the party and played the game, that the success you would have would be incredibly fleeting. There's a very small list of artists that actually went into the game and, number one, survived it physically, who didn't die from pressure and drugs and alcohol and rock and roll, whatever, and that survive the game and come out the other end still owning their own souls, right? There's very few people who ever did that. So Waylon was one of those people. And when I think about him and other people that I met down there, like Monroe and these other people who owned their own world, I see where the industry failed over the last 30 years, where the gatekeepers were taken away. Recording technology became available to everybody. Radio stations began to be programmed by computers, and DJs were no longer DJs. They were just button pushers, and you couldn't have a regional hit unless you knew somebody in that region who was just way outside the envelope, who would break all the rules. Many albums, I hate saying this, but it's unfortunately true. Many albums over the past 30 years that got made, outside the normal channels, there were no normal channels, because as I've said, the entire structure of how people got records made was gone in the last 30 years. Many albums got made that just shouldn't have been made by people who weren't ready to record or just weren't good enough. They should have went and... I think anybody can be good enough to make a record, but you've got to practice your craft. You can't just throw stuff up on a tape and bang, you get a record. People who are not looking outside their own family and friends to get critiqued by what they... you can't just trust yourself and your buddy to tell you that you're good enough to make a record. You got to go, look to someone who's had some success or just be smart enough to compare yourself to your own heroes, and that's happened thousands of times in the past 30 years. And what it did, unfortunately, now mind you, on the one side of the coin, it produced some incredible music. Some of these people who had no support from the industry were actually wicked artists. And they made their own way and were then accepted sort of into the industry after the fact. But the larger contingent of it is it flooded the entire market with product, with recordings that would never get heard on the radio, would never win awards, would never just... It was just fill, And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. And there's a reason why, there were people in charge from 1950 to 1995, 96, 97, when recording technology started to become... You could buy it at your local music store and put out a digital recording that was just as good as anything else. I mean, there was a reason why there were people in charge of guarding that doorway, so that the industry would be healthy, and money would be made, and that money could be invested into new artists and into new projects. And when it all fell apart, there was just... the structure went away, and everybody just started running in their own direction like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off. And a lot of great artists during that time were lost in the shuffle. Back in Waylon's day, that didn't really happen, It was things were much smaller, and the gatekeepers were up, and there was only so many guys coming out that were, really killing it. But people like Waylon went in, kicked ass, and then looked at the whole situation and went, I don't agree with any of this. I don't think I want to do this. And I got to mention Chet, too, because Chet Atkins was one of the biggest rebels of all. You think about Chet, and you think he was a guitar player, and he was a sideman, and he was a record producer, and they call RCA Records the house that Chet built. Well, you know how Chet built that house? He took chance after chance after chance on artists that nobody else wanted. Waylon was one of them. Jerry Reed. He looked outside the box into that realm of artists that were over the top. They were people that were never going to sit at a record executive's desk in a meeting and say the right things to get signed, because their attitudes were horrible, according to the industry. But their attitudes were really just, you know what, you're not going to screw me. If I'm doing this for my benefit, not yours. I'll share it with you, but you ain't gonna own me. And so, Chet took a lot of chances on people and made star after star, people that he believed in, and unfortunately, there's no Chet Atkins left, The Chets are all gone. The people that, and even if there was people like that now, it wouldn't do any good because the whole industry, the whole commercial music industry has changed to the point where there's just one formula, one song, one chord progression, one subject matter that gets written over and over and over and over again with just a 3 or 4% change in it, and that's the hit song every month. And it's a sad place to be, right? And when I look back on those, in the early 90s, when I was hanging around these guys and the industry was still relatively healthy, and I could look at Waylon and look at all these people and go, holy crap, like this is where I want to be. I don't want to end up, under some contract somewhere where I can't even choose what songs I'm recording, or making millions of dollars for somebody else while I go out and bust my ass on the road and kill myself. And these people, Waylon became, well, he already was a hero, but he was even more of a hero once I was get a chance to be in the room with that guy. I was just like, no, I'm going to go this way. I'm going this way. Marty Stewart was another one and he took all his signals from John Cash. Marty played the game and did well, but I don't think Marty ever really intended to be this, this cookie cutter star that Nashville wanted to put forward. And that's why Marty didn't have the kind of success he deserved, because everybody could see that he wasn't going to play that game. He was going to promote and push forward an agenda that had to do with real music. Not even then, the cookie cutter thing was happening in Nashville. So Marty was a guy that was like, yeah, I'll get up here and sing "Tempted" and all the hits he had and stuff. He had a ton of radio hits, but he couldn't crack the top. He was in the top 10 a few times, and I think he had a couple of number ones. I'm not even sure, but it didn't matter because Marty was of the same cloth. I'm going to do this the way I want to do it. And now we look at where he is now. He's in his 60s, and he's killing it. And he's killing it by playing music that he believes in. This is the way most things, if you look at all these guys, Waylon and Chris and Buck Owens and Dwight Yoakam and Willie Nelson and any number of people, Steve Earle and like all these guys, they just did what they wanted to do, and everybody else, just back up, boys, because I'm not playing. I'll take your money and work in this system because I have to work in it. But I ain't doing what you're telling me to do. When the TV shows were over with Waylon, the first thing that happened is we got paid a metric shit ton of money. I didn't realize how much money there was in television, and the union paid real well for it. And so we all received checks for, several $1,000s. And back when I had gone over to Lafayette and met Hilda, at that time I broke things off with Kelly, the young lady I was hanging out with up country, the one who helped me get my consolidation loan. And so the first thing I did with that money, I remember this story because it was so cool. I took some of the money and I went out and paid that loan out altogether. And this had been, a few months had gone by since I had left her, and we left on good terms. I just kind of told her one night, I'm this won't work. I got to go do other things, and she was cool with it. And I guess, I mean, I don't think I busted her heart too bad, and I paid off that loan, and a few days later, I got a phone call. It was her, and I was thinking, wow, why is she calling me? And I took the phone, and she said, I got a call from the finance company about your loan, and she said, I automatically thought you had defaulted on the loan. And I said, no, I didn't. She said, yeah, I know. They told me you paid the whole thing off. And she said, I just want you to know that I really appreciate that, and you've kind of restored my faith in men a little, because she'd had a hard time, as most women do. A lot of women get stuck with men they shouldn't be with. That's for damn sure. And she said, I just want you to know that I wasn't expecting it. And she said, you're not the typical guy I was used to. I didn't think this was going to turn out this way, right? And I said, well, I'm happy to disappoint you. And so I went out and paid that loan off. There had always been a problem with my immigration status in the U.S. As I said earlier, way back, however many episodes ago, I actually got deported once, and I tried real hard to follow the rules, and the rules were watery at best. Like they weren't real clear what the rules actually were. But I tried to follow them, and I did so by only staying down there for about 6 months at a time and coming home for a month and then re-entering. And I was never denied access to the U.S. I was never turned away at my own border. And I went in when I was down there, and I got the proper, I was always acutely aware of the law. And I think it was something that my mother kind of impressed upon me, is that, you got to follow the law. You can't break the law. You can't, you got to do the right thing. And so when I was down there, I'd get my driver's license. I went and got a social security number. I was trying to, get the documents I needed to get to be there and stay there for longer than 6-8 months or whatever it was. And a few times I stayed longer than I should have, but so immigration was a problem. And I'm not sure how other people viewed my immigration situation. I don't know. I know over the years it presented some problems within my personal relationships, because people were thinking I was trying to get married to stay there, and that wasn't the case at all. And so there must have been some conversation amongst all these guys up in Nashville. We got a call from Marty and Waylon. Waylon had called and said, we've got to get this boy his working papers. And so Waylon, we went and found a lawyer in Nashville. Her name was Linda Rose, and she was one of the most lovely people I've ever met. I think she's still practicing. At least I hope she is. I hope she's well. I haven't talked to her for a long time, but she stayed in my life for many years, helping me with this. And so Waylon spearheaded this drive to get me. I don't remember what the visa was called, but it was a 3 or 5 year visa that allowed me to just work for Jerry. That's all that I was allowed to do. And so Waylon launched this huge drive, and all these people came on board. Marty, Waylon, Chet, Carl Jackson, and there was about, I don't know, 8 or 10 other people. And all these people wrote these incredible letters to immigration on my behalf. And to this day, some of the copy of those letters is still in my publicity. And it was for real. I mean, they weren't coached by the lawyers. They hadn't talked to her. I just went to Linda to find out how to get the thing done. And she said, well, you need letters of support from people inside your industry. And as soon as Waylon heard that, boom, it started happening. And the letters started coming in. You know, of course, Marty had worked with me more closely than anybody, and he wrote a brilliant letter for me. And Waylon wrote this beautiful letter of so Waylon too. Like, he started out by saying, you know, my name is Waylon Jennings. I've sold 55 million albums, and blah blah blah. And he goes on with this paragraph of you know, short paragraph about his own accomplishments. And then at the end of it, he said, I'm supporting this young man who wants to come here and work and be part of our industry, and I would be proud to share the stage with him anytime, anywhere. And that's how he closed the letter. And then Chet wrote this beautiful letter about his love of the guitar and his love of seeing young people taking it to some other level. And then he finished his letter by saying, I believe that Mr. Cormier, young Mr. Cormier, he said, is one of the most important guitar players of his generation. And these were the kind of letters that were coming in. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind. So over that summer, all of this was going down. These letters are coming in. Linda Rose was preparing this package for immigration to, you know, send the application in. She said, you know, it's a shoe-in. You know, we can once we get you this, we can get you landed immigrant status and blah blah blah. And a bunch of things were occurring on the Stephanie and Griggs front as well. I remember a conversation I had with. See, this is where things get so strange, you know, like Griggs. He's a great guy. And I remember we were out at a gig somewhere, you know, after the Waylon shows. And it was the middle of the night. We finished playing this church, and me and Griggs are out there by ourselves. And he's telling me, you know, all these stories about Stephanie and what's, you know, the things that she was doing that were indicative of the abuse she'd suffered from Jerry, you know. And he's asking me, you know, for advice. What do I do? And I just was like, you know, Andy, you just got to do, if you love her, just do what you have to do to get things evened out and her evened out. And he was coming to me for advice, and it was completely ironic, you know. It was just like I had already gone through most of this stuff with her, and here he was going through the same thing, and it was just really weird. It was a weird time. We worked the rest of that summer. One of the things that started to happen that was a little bit concerning to me was, well, we ended up in the studio cutting a major album. I think it was the one called At the Feet of God. Yes, At the Feet of God, I think was the name of the record. And there were co-writes on that album between me and Jerry and Marty. And there was going to be some weird shit go on with that going forward. But we made the album, and it's an incredible album. And it was a lot of fun. We did some serious singing and picking on that record. And it was one of the most fun projects I ever did. I helped arrange it, and basically me and Jerry and Tammy and Marty just sat there, you know, over a period of a few weeks and got the album arranged and went into the Welk building, the Lawrence Welk Studios, the Champagne Studios, and cut the album there. And it was a lot of fun. And it appeared that there was a lot of stuff going, whatever Waylon had done for us had took. There was something going on. Soon, it was September, and it was time for me to load up and go to Cape Breton and get married. So the end of this episode, I think, is going to be a little strange. Like I need to talk about this because there was just a lot of things going on. When Hilda was down with me in Nashville when we were at the Ryman, I saw some signals there that I probably should have paid more attention to. One of them was she had rolled her eyes at the ceiling at some point, made an offhand comment, looking at the ceiling going, God, I hope this is the last man, And I thought, Jesus, that was kind of weird. And and I didn't care. I mean, she was 6 years older than me. So I realized the woman had a past. I wasn't that concerned about it. And I had my own past. So, but other than that, there was not anything too strange going on. I like, she was definitely different. She had a way about her that was just different. And I was just overwhelmed with the thought of being married to someone who understood me, because she was a genius level player, or so I thought. She is one of the best accompanists that's ever lived. But the fact of the matter is, it comes so easy to her that she doesn't really think about it. She's almost like a savant. It's like she just does it. It's in her DNA, which is a different thing than me. I have to think about what I'm doing, and I can't stop inventing or learning, or I lose my mind. And she was just never like that, and I didn't know that, but she learned, she developed her style to its apex, which put her basically above anybody else as a piano player, except for when people like John Morris Rankin and Mac Moran and these guys started coming in. They took it a level above her. They took her as the inspiration and, went further with it. But I don't know. I didn't look at the situation as closely as I should have. I know that. And so I'm actually going to leave. I'm actually going to leave the episode here and set up a few things for next week. One of the things that was occurring at that moment was, because we'd had all this success suddenly, and the new album was made, and there was Marty and Jerry had written a new song called "Let Me Be a Witness." That I was, I don't know if I was even on it. I can't remember, but it was written and recorded, and they were going to shoot a video for it, like a major one, in Nashville. I think that Sony was involved. And so they suddenly threw this on me, and it was like, okay, well, we're shooting this video and cutting the song, shooting this video. Are you really going to Nova Scotia to get married? And I was like, well, yes. I mean, we've planned the date, September 17th. This is going to happen. I can't back out of my wedding. And Jerry, I think, actually expected me to do just that. I'm not sure what he expected. But I also had this playing for me on my side, is that I had to exit the country in order to activate this visa, this work permit that Whalen and Chet and all these people had gotten for me. I had to go out of the country in order to make it valid. So I had to leave the country. It wasn't a matter of choice. And I think something in Jerry probably thought that I was never coming back either. Because, let's face it, I had just gone through over a year of really shitty circumstances because of Stephanie, because of trying to keep working in that band with all of that crap going on, and no money and no nothing, and just working our asses off. And but what ended up happening was I was leaving Bob there. So Bob was sort of my insurance. Like, Jerry is like, well, he's not going to leave his brother here. Of course, Bob could have gotten his car and driven off too, but it was just weird. It was a weird scene, and I think Jerry was afraid I wasn't coming back, and I was worried about leaving Bob there alone. I didn't really know what was going on, and then there was the wild card of Hilda. I was. It's one of those things, I speak about this in this series all the time, about how you think you know somebody because of their music. I didn't know Hilda, and if I had got to know Hilda better, I would never have married her. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. We were not a good match, and that would definitely play out over the following 14 years. And so there I was. I think we had actually played a gig, and I had driven my car up behind the bus. I think we were up in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. And this was another thing too. I got to mention this. Right during this time too, there was a guy from the University of North Carolina named Jack Bernhardt, who worked for the musicology. He worked for the Smithsonian. He worked for all these different government historical agencies. And he had come down and went on the road with us because he was going to put us in a book. And he did. He wrote a book about American, I guess it was sort of about American traditional music. And he wrote several chapters in this book just about us. And he spent a couple of weeks on the road with us. And of course we had a great time with him. He was a beautiful man. And so that was a strange, like, there were so many things as I continue through this series. There were so many things, quite frankly, that I should have clued into and said, I don't think I'm going to go back to Canada. I don't think I'm going to go back to Canada. I think I'm just going to stay here, and we'll just let that. We'll forget about the wedding. We'll forget about this. I'm going to see what happens with all these things. But I've always been a strange person in my life. When I get my mind set on something, I can't let go of it. And I had made my decision to leave there and get married and come back and try to make a go of it there. But that was my mindset, and that's all that my brain was going to let me do. And I think there were some definite signals from the cosmos that I should have reconsidered what I was doing. But I didn't. So the outcome of it all turns out to be, in the long run, fantastic. Because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. The only thing is hindsight. Hindsight is a torturous bastard. I wish I could go back and see what would have happened. That's the only thing that I ever think about is, wow, that could have been, that was right there for me, but I didn't do it. I ended up doing what I did, and becoming who I became, and I got to live my Wayland life, which I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed doing all the things I've done in the music and the business and being able to sit back now in my 50s and go, I can pretty well do whatever I want. If I want to record a record, or I want to write, or if I want to work with this person or that person, or help produce this artist or that artist, or collaboration's wide open to me. For me personally, the type of person and musician I am, I've ended up in the best possible space. So it was difficult getting here, but I ended up in the best possible space, and I think about Waylon, and I think, yeah, he was right. Just do your own thing. Do your own thing. Don't take no shit off nobody, and don't let nobody tell you what you should be doing. Follow what you think you should do. And then if you make a mistake and crash and burn, it's your own fault. And you learn from it. Don't make mistakes twice. And I tried to follow that for most of my life. But there I was, standing outside the bus. I don't even think Jerry said goodbye to me. I think he was pissed. I had my suit laid out in the trunk of the Oldsmobile and a couple of bags with me. Got in the Oldsmobile, started her up, and I headed north after that last gig in North Carolina. Middle of the night, too. I left right after a gig, and I just drove and drove and drove, and couldn't wait to see where I was from. I'd been to Cape Breton once before that on a CBC gig, but now I was going back there to marry into it, and in the town where my father was born and my brothers were born, and truly become a son of that island. Even though I already was, I finally felt like I was going to have a home, and that's important. Sometimes more important than anything else. Money, success, even happiness. Sometimes if you're home, that's all that counts and all that matters.